Wow. So Lagos men spent 661 billion naira on non-partner sex in 2024. Emphasis on the word non-partner, which is tantamount to side chick. It's an entire industry in Lagos. 661 billion naira. Let's crunch a few of the numbers. Let's take a look at some of the earnings report from sex in 2024. Sitting at the top of the numbers is 661 billion naira from non-partner sex. 332 billion naira on other sex-related costs, air tickets, Airbnb, hotels, gift items, shawarma, or whatnot. Everything that you can think of that is associated with sex just in 2024. And that's 332 billion naira. The next number that you should pay attention to with is 329 billion naira. 329 billion naira is the actual transactional sex. This report was based on a sample space and a survey from nothing less than 10,000 sex workers. That means 329 billion naira was the transaction volume that went into the act of patronizing sex workers. That's some crazy numbers, if you ask me. And that's an entire industry, as a matter of fact. Some of you even call them the OS girls, operating system, or whatever it is you call it. Beyond that, if we're even going to take a look at some of the other numbers, 1.9 million transactional sex was had in 2024 based on this data. And the 2016 Lagos census was what was used. 13.5 million Lagos population based on the 2016 census data that Mo Africa made use of. And then out of that, 6.9 million of the 13.5 million population are male. About 3.9 million of those numbers are age 20 to 69. And then out of the 3.9 million, 3.1 million of those numbers are sexually active. And this is a report coming from Mo Africa, which are the guys responsible for the Dirty December report that we had in January. But what is more interesting is where most of these monies end up going. And I always say money is called a currency because it flows. It's a current. It doesn't remain static. Yes, sex must have generated those funds, but we're seeing the revenue flowing into some other sectors. Let's take a look at some other sectors that benefited from the 661 billion naira. 329 billion naira out of the 661 billion were spent across different subsectors. And let's take a look at some of that. Body and skin maintenance took a whopping sum of nothing less than 94 billion naira. Now, black tax, family support, sending money to your aged mothers, aged parents in the village, in the rural parts, took a whopping sum of 63 billion naira. And then, when many ladies made mention of them being intentional about self-care, they were really not joking because we're seeing it from these numbers. 62.5 billion naira went into self-care. And then 46 billion naira went into business and investment. You know how you use sex to generate the money, but you use business and investment to multiply the money. And then we're seeing healthcare taking 15 billion naira of that chunk. We're talking about preventive healthcare, or perhaps even the men having to take some shots just to aid performance. And this gives you an insight as to how massive the sex industry can be just in Lagos. And we're not even looking at some other states. What is really amazing about this data is the fact that 46 billion naira of those numbers were reinvested back into the economy. So it's a win-win situation for the government from any angle you want to take a look at it from. So if you have a wild guess, which local government generated the most of these monies? You might be quick to say it's Tiosa, but I'm sorry to disappoint you. Koshofel local government is sitting at the top of the earnings charts. They made a whopping sum of 79 billion naira based on these numbers. And so take it slow on bashing lucky ladies because, hey, numbers don't lie. We're seeing it live and direct from this report. The next on our chart is Surulere. Surulere contributing nothing less than 66.7 billion naira. And then Alimosho generating nothing less than 61.7 billion naira. Etiosa is the fourth on the list based on the earnings report, 60.5 billion naira. And then Ifako is the fifth on the list, 42.9 billion naira. And imagine this was done in the city of Abuja, where we have the politicians and people who literally spend a chunk of our national cake on this industry. Imagine what the numbers is going to be. And then look at the interplay of how wealth goes back to rural part of the economy in form of black tax, then the automobile industry, the airline industry, hotels, hospitality, tourism, all whatnot. All of these sub-sectors benefited from the sex industry based on these numbers. And this data is an offshoot of a bigger research, which is the social lifestyle and the informal sector in Lagos. But the big question I'm going to be asking is that, do you think that the government should start taxing the sex industry? Because 661 billion naira, it's a decent sum. Take a look at what is happening with the Dutch, the government of the Netherlands. They generated tax revenue of $800 million from this same industry. Remember that based on the latest GDP reports, we're seeing that we are a service-based economy. Lagos alone generated an IGR of 800 billion naira. And out of the 800 billion naira IGR generated, we're seeing that 600 billion naira of that IGR came from the informal sector. Imagine what the government would make if the sector is being taxed. But at the same time, remember that we're a very hypocritical society. No one is going to come out to say, yes, they made such and such amount from sex if the government decided to go down the route of taxing this same industry. And then no one is going to say they spent such amount as well on sex if the government goes ahead and taxing the same industries. If the government thinks of going down that route, it's going to be dead on arrival. What do you think about all of this? Do you think that the government should formalize this industry just for the sole purpose of taxing the industry? Sentiments aside, it's just like what is happening with marijuana. As a matter of fact, Nigeria consumes $15 billion worth of marijuana on a yearly basis. And imagine if that is being taxed or legalized. I'm not calling for that, but we're just looking at different perspectives. We have some states in the US that have legalized marijuana because $15 billion of consumption, that's a crazy amount if you ask me. And as a matter of fact, sometime we saw that Ondo State government was taking a look at maybe perhaps legalizing it. On the flip side, legalizing it can also further increase the abuse of it. But then, chime in your thoughts. What are your thoughts about all of this and the interplay of some of all this semi-illegal industry and how they can benefit the government in the long run? Let me hear from you. It looks like sex is a very lucrative business in Lagos because what in goodness name is this numbers we're seeing from this report? And also, More Africa, who released this report, said is most likely going to be more than this because they only did the survey with direct sex workers. So imagine the survey that will be done with indirect sex workers. And they did this for 3 months using a sample space of nothing less than 10,000 sex workers to be able to generate this report. But some Nigerians are of the opinion that this can be fact-checked because it's quite difficult to be able to get the actual data. Shout out to Kayode Omoshebi, who's the Director General of More Africa. He said categorically that they took their time to carry out this report because they have a broader picture to take a look at the informal sector in Lagos and perhaps even consult for some other companies that are looking at investing in the state. And these are the reasons why we have some of this report. But then it looks like you guys are really busy with your genitals as regards this industry, generating a lot of money for the state. Think about what other states are also going to be generating from the same industry. But then you sure know that Nigerians hardly kiss and tell. And so it might just be difficult for you to get the actual numbers based on this industry. But then this is close to it. Based on what we're saying, what is your take? Tell me in the comment section. Do you think that it is more than this or lower than this? Let me hear from you. Cheers.